The fever had me pinned to my mattress, sweat dampening the thin sheets, my throat so raw it felt like I had swallowed shards of glass. The glow of the clock on my nightstand told me it was just past 2:30 when my phone buzzed against the wood. My body resisted even the act of turning, but habit and dread forced my hand to reach for it. "Clara," the voice said before I could manage a word. Flat, rehearsed, merciless. "Vanessa Ellis." I tried to clear my throat, but only a rasp came out. "We're letting you go. Effective immediately. Every project you've been leading is now reassigned mine. HR will follow up tomorrow." The words cut cleaner than any fever dream. For 3 years I had carried her vision, built her reputation with my designs, kept her empire from collapsing, and now, on a night when I could barely breathe. She ended it with a sentence. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, though my hand trembled. "Fine. Just that." There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, the faint hum of static between us. "What do you mean by that?" she snapped. Suddenly sharp. Through the haze of fever, I let a smile form. Not out of joy, out of certainty. She didn't know. The phone was on speaker. My upstairs neighbor, Tobias, had stopped by earlier to drop off medicine my mother couldn't afford to fetch herself. When he heard the ring, I gestured weakly for him to stay quiet. Now he sat at my small kitchen table above me, phone in hand, recording every word. Vanessa thought she was delivering a final blow. What she had really done was read her own confession into the record. "I mean exactly what I said," I whispered, voice cracking. "Fine." I ended the call before she could press further. For a long moment I stared at the ceiling, the room spinning, my heart pounding under layers of soaked blankets. My dog shifted at the foot of the bed, sensing the tension ebbing out of me. She thought she had stolen everything. She hadn't realized yet that she had walked straight into my script. 3 years earlier, I was still in Milwaukee, sitting in a windowless office stacked with faded blueprints and half-finished renderings. My career felt stalled, my ideas smothered by safe clients and cautious supervisors. Then Vanessa Ellis walked in. She had that polished urgency of someone who made decisions before anyone else realized a choice had to be made. "You see differently," she said, flipping through my portfolio with brisk fingers. "We need vision like yours." It was the first time anyone had looked at my sketches like they mattered. The way she spoke sharp, commanding, made me believe she recognized something rare in me. I signed the offer before the ink was dry. Chicago was overwhelming at first. Glass towers, cranes cutting into the skyline, projects moving faster than I could keep track of. But she gave me space. Vanessa told me to lead designs, to push past convention. "Don't polish away the edge," she reminded me. "That's what makes you rare." Behind closed doors, she praised me. I thought I was building something real. The North Valley project changed everything. It was a decrepit post office and block slated for revival. Vanessa handed it directly to me. "Make them care again." I lived in that space, freezing fingers sketching by the old brick walls, digging into forgotten blueprints from the 50s. When the council approved, the press swarmed. For weeks, colleagues stopped me in hallways, telling me it was the kind of design that reminded them why they started. Then came the gala. String lights on a downtown rooftop, champagne flutes and applause echoing against the skyline. The MC introduced the firm's visionary leader. Applause erupted as Vanessa walked to the microphone in her perfect navy dress. "I pushed hard for this project because I believed in the community," she said, every sentence cut deeper. My name never crossed her lips. I found her later near the valet. My voice trembled when I said, "That was my design." She didn't blink. "Grow up, Clara. This is business." That night, something inside me shifted, and I knew trust would never return. I wanted to walk away that night, to throw the valet ticket in Vanessa's face and let her empire collapse without me. But when I got home, my mother was waiting at the kitchen table, her hands shaking as she lined up her bottles of pills. The insurance covered most of it, but the rare medication she needed $7,000 a month was always hanging over us like a guillotine. My paycheck was the only thing keeping her alive. So I went back to work the next day. I smiled when Vanessa walked past my desk. I kept my head down in meetings. I let her tell the board that she had guided the North Valley project, even as colleagues clapped. Every time it happened, I buried the anger deeper, swallowing it with my coffee until it burned in my chest. The pattern became obvious. Any project that passed through my hands was filtered through hers. A shade altered on a facade. A line shifted in a rendering. A phrase swapped in a presentation just enough for her to claim it was refined under her direction. If a client loved it, she paraded it as her victory. If they raised questions, suddenly I was dragged back into the room to defend it, absorbing the heat while she stayed silent at the head of the table. The final insult came when Peter, whose portfolio was a patchwork of half-baked sketches, was promoted to senior lead. His slides had once included my renderings with my initials still visible in the corner, cropped badly. Vanessa brushed it off as collaborative spirit. He walked away with the title. I walked away with nothing. Silence, grind, swallow, repeat. But I wasn't as powerless as I pretended. Quietly, I began saving everything. Every draft was time-stamped, every Slack message screenshotted, every directive from Vanessa archived in a folder I labeled backup. At first, it was self-defense, proof I wasn't crazy, evidence I wasn't just a bitter employee. But over time, it grew. Subfolders by client, by project, by year. Spreadsheets cross-referenced and color-coded. What began as protection slowly turned into something sharper, colder, an arsenal waiting to be used. The tension in the conference room was thick enough to choke on. Caro Hotels, one of our biggest accounts, had flown in their entire executive team only to sit there unimpressed, flipping through our mock-ups like they were junk mail. "We're not paying boutique prices for basic layouts," one of them said flatly. "Give us a reason to care, or we're gone." Silence fell. Then Vanessa smiled that tight, controlled smile she always wore when her back was against the wall. "Of course," she said smoothly. "We'll assign our top designer." Her eyes slid to me, under close supervision. The words stung, but I bit my tongue and nodded. For weeks, I barely slept. I lived in those plans, stripping out the glossy nonsense and rebuilding from scratch. I asked myself what made a hotel linger in memory, how a space could slow someone down instead of rushing them through. I used raw wood, corridors bathed in daylight, rooms shaped like living spaces instead of boxes. Every line was meant to remind someone of home, not commerce. When the final renderings were presented, the Caro executives went quiet. One leaned back in his chair, eyes locked on the sketches. "This doesn't feel like a hotel," he said. "It feels like a memory." They signed the contract on the spot. The launch event was a spectacle flashes, reporters, champagne. I stood near the back in borrowed slacks, already bracing for the inevitable. Sure enough, Vanessa claimed the spotlight, declaring that she had pushed the project beyond its limits and led the firm into new territory. My name appeared once, tucked into the corner of a slideshow. No caption. I stepped outside before the night ended, fists tight at my sides, staring at the glowing skyline. The rage was there, sharp and steady, but so was something else. A decision. I wasn't going to scream or storm out, not yet. I was going to stay. I was going to smile when she looked at me, nod when she tried to erase me, and when the time came, I'd flip the board she thought she owned. A month later, Vanessa called me into her office with that smile she wore like sharpened glass. 3 folders lay neatly stacked on her desk, color-coded, crisp. She slid them toward me like a dealer laying down cards. "Big opportunity," she said. "Phoenix Art Center. 6 weeks. a Chicago high-rise, 12 weeks, full redesign, and Asheville Boutique Spa Hotel, 8 weeks, already behind schedule. I flipped through each folder, scanning the timelines, the budgets, the tangled logistics. It wasn't opportunity. It was execution by workload. You've been asking for more responsibility, Vanessa added, leaning back in her chair. Prove you're ready. I lifted my eyes and met hers. She wanted me to crack, to drown under impossible deadlines so she could write me off as a burnout. And if by some miracle I pulled it off, she'd take the bow. Again. All right, I said evenly. I'll handle it. She raised an eyebrow. Completely. I left her office with the folders pressed tight to my chest and whispered to myself, game on. From that moment, I built 2 worlds. In the first, I gave her exactly what she demanded, bold sketches that bent codes until they snapped, renderings with glass corridors twice the legal distance from exits, balconies that ignored setback laws, load-bearing walls drawn as if physics were optional. She praised them, giddy with the illusion of brilliance. This is what elevates us, she said, grinning at Chicago's reckless outline. In the second world, the one hidden on my encrypted drive, I drafted the real projects. Compliant, safe, sustainable. Designs that could actually stand. Every reckless directive she gave me went straight into my archive. Push boundaries. Don't let zoning fear kill vision. Permits can wait. Her words, her initials, her digital fingerprints were stamped across them all. She thought she was building her legacy. What she didn't know was that I was building her confession. By the second week of juggling those projects, my body started betraying me. At first, it was just a scratch in my throat, the kind you blame on too much coffee and not enough sleep. Then the cough set in, deep and raw, rattling my ribs until every breath burned. Within days, I was on the bathroom floor, fever spiking, my skin clammy against the tiles. Pneumonia had me pinned, and I couldn't even lift my laptop without the edges of my vision going black. I sent a short email, unable to work. Respiratory infection. Will update in 48 hours. No reply. Not from Vanessa. Not from anyone. At first, I told myself they were giving me space. But then the silence spread. No Slack pings. No file requests. No late-night calls. When I finally forced myself to check the shared drives, I saw my folders being renamed, my files reassigned, piece by piece. My work was being stripped away, as if I had never touched it. I tried to sit up, to fight back, but the fever dragged me down again. Nights and days blurred together into one endless haze of coughing fits and shivering under sweat-soaked blankets. My mother patted in quietly with tea I couldn't taste, medicine I couldn't hold down. I told her nothing. She didn't need more weight on her shoulders. Then came the call. 2:30 a.m. The same hour the world feels like it belongs only to shadows. Vanessa's voice cut through the dark, cold as steel. You're done, effective immediately. All projects are mine now. My lungs felt like they were caving in, but I managed one word, fine. There was silence on her end, a hesitation she hadn't expected. She snapped, what do you mean by that? But I didn't answer. What she didn't know, what even I hadn't counted on, was that Tobias upstairs had his phone recording the whole exchange. My quiet neighbor, the one who always offered to water plants when I traveled, had just given me a second safety net. She thought I was finished. She had no idea she was already falling. I woke drenched in sweat, my chest aching like it was splintered from the inside. Every instinct screamed at me to stay in bed, to let the fever run its course. But something heavier pressed on me the knowledge that silence was surrender. Vanessa thought she had erased me. She was wrong. I dragged myself upright. Every step from the bed to the desk a war. My laptop glowed faintly as I opened it, fingers trembling over the keys. The air felt thick, every breath a ragged pull, but I kept typing. The first email went to internal compliance. Subject line: Urgent Code Violations Phoenix, Chicago, Asheville. I attached side-by-side diagrams, annotated notes, renderings that showed exactly how far her directives had crossed into danger. Every corridor too long, every load-bearing wall cut thin, every balcony that would never pass inspection all stamped with her initials. The second email was addressed to the board. Subject: Ellis misconduct evidence enclosed. I zipped 6 folders, each one packed with archived files, Slack messages where she ordered shortcuts, email threads where she claimed my work as hers, audio clips of meetings where her voice pushed for risk, proof layered on proof until the truth couldn't be untangled. The third email was the final safeguard. To my lawyer, unlawful termination retaliation evidence. She had been waiting, collecting drips of information from me over the past year. Now she had the flood. When I hit send, my body gave out. I slid from the chair, curling back under the blanket, lungs rattling as I closed my eyes. Whatever happened next was already set in motion, somewhere across the city. Vanessa lifted a glass of champagne at a dinner party, laughing as she told the room, "The firm is mine alone now." She believed she had won, her voice dripping with triumph. She didn't realize the fuse had already been lit, and it was burning straight toward her seat at the head of the table. A week later, still pale from fever, I wrapped myself in a black sweater and logged into the board's closed session. The screen filled with faces: 11 directors, 2 senior partners, outside counsel, and Vanessa, flawless as ever, her expression a mask of irritation. The moment she saw me, her composure cracked. "Why is she here?" she demanded. "She has no right. She was terminated." Preston Wells, the board chair, cleared his throat. His voice carried the weight of someone used to command. "She's here because she should be." Vanessa's lips thinned. "This is absurd." Preston gestured to the counsel beside him, and suddenly the screen shifted. A recording of our midnight call played, Vanessa's voice echoing cold and certain. "You're done, effective immediately. All your projects are mine now." Vanessa tried to speak, but Preston cut her off with the next slide timestamps. Diagrams. Side-by-side comparisons of reckless renderings against the compliant versions I had built. Each note bore her initials, her directives, her fingerprints. The Caro Hotel's executives joined briefly, confirming I had led every major meeting, every early-stage design, while Vanessa had only managed invoices and scheduling. Their testimony was calm, factual, undeniable. Slide after slide tied her tighter to violations, credit theft, retaliation. My lawyer's voice was firm, precise. "It is in the best interest of the firm to pursue immediate separation to avoid catastrophic liability." Vanessa's mask crumbled. She looked around for allies, but no one met her eyes. Her face flickered between rage and disbelief before she finally slammed her laptop shut, vanishing from the screen. For a long moment, silence hung over the call. Then Preston leaned forward. "Clara, you've carried the creative foundation of this firm for years. We'd like to offer you the role of creative director permanently." I should have felt triumph, or at least relief. Instead, there was only a strange hollowness in my chest. This wasn't the victory I had envisioned, because the throne she had clung to wasn't the prize I wanted. The offer hung in the air, polished and heavy, but I couldn't bring myself to take it. Vanessa's crown was poisoned, built on theft and silence. I didn't want her chair. I wanted something entirely different. "Preston," I said slowly, "what if the problem isn't just her? What if it's the system that let her erase people in the first place?" He narrowed his eyes. "Go on." I told them about a studio with no hierarchy walls, where designers' names stayed attached to their work, where pay was tied directly to a project's success. No more disappearing juniors, no more stolen credit. People work harder when their work actually belongs to them. The board shifted in their seats. Doubtful. Preston tapped his pen against a pad. That sounds idealistic. It's overdue, I replied. You asked me to lead. This is how. Silence stretched before Preston finally exhaled. 1 year, a pilot program, 3 clients, prove it works. I accepted without hesitation. The first calls I made weren't to rising stars or industry darlings. I reached out to the people Vanessa had discarded. Margot, who'd been laid off 3 times despite brilliance on paper. 2 interns who quit after watching their ideas recycled without credit. A quiet draftsman in Phoenix who'd been pushed into the shadows. They all said the same thing I'm in. We worked remotely, scattered across states, connected only by early morning video calls and shared drives. Our first project, a modest co-working annex, wasn't glamorous, but it became our proof. Margot sketched the layout, her vision sharp and efficient. When we presented, the client asked, "Who designed this?" I didn't hesitate. Margot. All hers. Her face lit up on camera, like a switch had been thrown inside her. The project came in under budget, ahead of schedule. And for the first time in years, someone other than me heard their name said out loud in credit. That glow in their eyes told me we were onto something larger than a project. By the end of the first year, our model wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. The press picked it up, praising our transparency, our pace, our results. Small firms called us pioneers. Big clients called us refreshingly human. Other companies scrambled to mimic what we were doing, but without conviction, they collapsed under their own weight. Word reached me that Vanessa had tried to launch her own collaborative studio. The website was glossy, the language polished, but the cracks showed immediately. She still led with herself, still promised big while delivering little. Clients left within months, designers saw through her facade, and the firm imploded before its first anniversary. 6 months later, a letter arrived, handwritten, no return address, tucked into an envelope with my name on it. The handwriting was sharp but trembling. I opened a tiny shop near Spokane. No titles. Full credit. I'm learning to listen again. Thank you. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and slid it into the drawer of my desk. Not as a trophy, not to gloat, but as proof that change even for someone like her was possible. Some nights I'd sit at that desk with the drawer open, running my fingers over the edge of the envelope. My studio buzzed around me with designers who finally felt seen, who knew their names mattered. Every presentation, every signature on a contract carried a weight Vanessa had once stripped from me. She thought she ended me that night, whispering my termination over the phone while I lay sick in bed. But she hadn't stolen my work. The projects she grabbed weren't mine to lose. They were traps, waiting for her arrogance to trigger them. And when they did, they didn't just bury her, they laid the foundation for something entirely new. The sweetest revenge was never about taking her crown. It was about making that crown worthless, turning it into a relic no one wanted, not even the one who stole it.